You don't have to report to get support. That's the message from SAPARS, which stands for Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Services.
The mission is to prevent all forms of sexual violence and to empower all people affected by sexual violence to find a path to healing. Here to tell us more is Executive Director Meg Hatch and Jenny Moody, a forensic interviewer and coordinator for the Children's Advocacy Center of Androscoggin, Franklin, and Oxford counties. And a bonus guest, you might have noticed, Boss, who we'll be talking about in just a moment. Thank you both so much for being here and to talk about this important topic. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So Meg, let's start with you. Walk us through how long sexual assault prevention and response services have been around and what it is exactly.
Sure. So the organization has been providing services to survivors of sexual violence for about 40 years. And we provide sort of what I think about as kind of two buckets of services. So we have a full range of what we call intervention services and then also a full range of prevention services. And so within that bucket of intervention, I think about things like our 24-hour support line that's available 7 days a week, 365 days a year, staffed by people from our organization. And that helpline is available for people who have experienced sexual violence, but also for people who are supporting someone who may have experienced sexual violence. So we frequently get calls from parents or partners or teachers or counselors sort of wondering how they can support someone who's made a disclosure and or what the resources are that are available to them.
And Meg, we understand also the organization offers many important services related to people who have experienced sexual violence and people supporting survivors. Talk about that.
Yeah, so again, oftentimes we are working with both a survivor and people who are trying to provide that survivor with support. And so we do what I sort of think of as some sort of coaching where we kind of help people understand what's the best way to be supportive. I think sometimes people think that they're being supportive of survivors when actually sometimes they can say things that might be harmful or not that helpful. And so we do a lot of sort of support around helping people just be supportive in ways that are actually helpful. And so we're sort of doing like mini advocacy training for them to teach them how to do that.
Sure. And so Jenny, SAPARS is an umbrella agency for children's advocacy centers. Tell us about the Child Advocacy Center, what they are and the focus.
Yeah. So the Children's Advocacy Center is underneath SAPARS. So we are a team of forensic interviewers and family advocates, and we provide a forensic interview for children who are part of an investigation. So that involves typically law enforcement, child protective services. So we see the families that come in who are involved in those investigations, and then we provide support to the children and wraparound services for the family.
And Jenny, you got to introduce the dog that you brought in today. Let's talk about Boss.
Yep, this is Boss. He's a 3-year-old golden retriever, and he just recently started therapy dog training through Mission Working Dogs out of Oxford County.
And how does that training work exactly?
So we sometimes go to the center actually in Oxford County. Sometimes we are at local nursing homes. We go to Lowe's, we go to Martin's, we go to all different, all different sites to just get them exposure to a lot of different people, different settings, and just kind of providing love and support.
Hey, these places are designed to be a safe space for children, and many times children will need to be interviewed. Talk about that process and how this can be done without re-victimizing a victim.
Yeah, so we conduct, these interviews are done in a neutral setting, so when we're doing the interviews, we're doing it in a way to lessen the amount of people that children have to talk to. So that way they're not talking to different investigative partners, they're doing it one time, hopefully in our center. And it's done in a neutral way, a trauma-informed way, child-friendly, and we're just providing grounding and support for kids.
And what type of success have you seen as far as, how many people you've been able to reach and support, when it comes to victims and their family members and friends trying to help them?
Yeah, so the Children's Advocacy Center this year has seen over 220 children, and so that's that program. And then sort of more broadly as SAPARS as an organization, through the range of support services, including the helpline, one-on-one sort of advocacy with people in person, support groups, drop-in hours at some of the high schools where our educators are. We serve almost 900 people last year, so we are serving quite a few people. And what we know about sexual violence is that 1 in 5 Mainers report experiencing sexual assault in their lifetime. And so we know that it's a pretty common experience for folks, and we just really want people to know that there are centers like this all across the state that provide a similar range of services. And so we encourage folks, if they've experienced sexual violence or know someone who has, to share this information with them so that they can get the support that they need.
Yeah, and let's talk about how important these centers are. I mean, it can be kids all the way from like, preschoolers, young, all the way up into high school that have to deal with this. So how important having this available is for the kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that the Children's Advocacy Center does, and SAPARS generally, is we're really well connected within the community. So we have relationships where we can make referrals and really provide wraparound services for people to address all the needs that they may have, because we know that people don't just experience one thing. And so I think that we do a really nice job of being sort of a hub for people who can come to us, and sort of it's like a no wrong door idea, where we may be able to provide them with some services, but they may also need some additional things that we may be able to refer them to.
Do you still find that for many people it is just so difficult to reach out, even though, it probably is the right thing and there's so much out there, but, it's just so difficult to kind of face that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've come a long way. And I think there still is some shame and stigma around experiencing sexual assault. And, from what we see in the media, sometimes when people come forward to talk about their experience, the reactions are not always positive, or not always people believing them. And so I do think that there are still some barriers for people accessing services. But it's important for us to have opportunities like this to come and be able to say, like, we're a safe place for people to come. You don't have to tell us your name. You don't have to tell us really anything. And we're just here to provide free, confidential support and help get you pointed in the right direction.
How does BOSS play a part in all this?
Yeah, I think BOSS is going to be there to really provide some grounding when families come in, because they're coming in with a lot of anxiousness and nervousness to talk about really hard things. So I think he'll be able to provide a lot of grounding support and just that emotional support that kids need when they come in there to talk about really hard things.
Well, thank you both so much for the work that you do. We really appreciate it. And we also want to urge you to head to sapars.org for more information. And remember, they have that 24/7 helpline that is free. The number to call, 1-800-871-7741.
And BOSS so well behaved.
Yes,
I
what
know.
a good boy.
Thank
Thanks
you so much
again.
for having
Thank
us.
It helps when they're offering treats.
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
Oh, and now you deserve a nap.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, as we head into break,